These three reckless boys thought they could get away with anything, partying hard, chasing girls, and hiding behind their powerful police connections. But when they mess with the wrong girl, the granddaughter of a deadly war veteran, their world flips upside down. What happens next is a brutal lesson in fear, justice, and consequences. Katia Afanina is a 20-year-old beautiful girl who lives a modest life with her only family, an elderly man named Ivan, who is her grandfather and also happens to be a decorated World War II veteran. They live in a small town in Russia where their days are usually simple and filled with peace. But in a nearby neighborhood, there are a toxic trio of local boys, known for their unchecked behavior and their weekly parties that often involve alcohol and paid companionship. Wednesdays are their designated night of indulgence, but on this particular evening, they struggle to find a girl who is willing to join them. Unfortunately, Katia happens to be passing by their building that evening, and their attention turns to her. One of the boys, Vadim, recognizes her as a former classmate, and the other two urged him to approach and talk to her. So, he goes to meet her with one of the boys called Igor, and the two try to convince Katia to come upstairs and hang out with them. She was very reluctant to join them, but when they claimed that their friend was celebrating his birthday, and they continued begging, Katia finally gave in and joined them. Inside the apartment, Katia immediately becomes uneasy as she spots bottles of alcohol scattered across the table. But the boys coax her to drink and even remind her of her school days, when she was praised for her singing. In an attempt to be polite, Katia sings for the supposed birthday boy, but unknown to her, Boris, the ringleader, secretly laced her drink as she sang. Soon after, Katia begins to feel dizzy, and when she attempts to leave, the effects of the drug overwhelm her. Then the boys lead her into a separate room and close in on her as they proceed to immediately begin their assault on her. It was started by Boris, while the others assist in holding her down and ignoring her attempts to escape. Several hours later, Katia totally feels broken and traumatized, as she just lies on the floor while the boys continue their assault. Eventually, they let her go late in the evening, and they even humiliated her the most by forcing a hush payment into her purse. But when Katia eventually stumbles outside, she throws the money away on the street as she makes her way home in silence. In the meantime, Vadim begins to panic, as he starts to fear the possible consequences of their actions, but the others remain confident, as they remind him that his father is an influential police official and that they will be untouchable. When Katia finally arrives home, she collapses in tears. Immediately, her grandfather noticed the bruises on her body. He understood what had happened. Totally enraged, he demands to know who did this, and when Katia mentions their names, he storms outside, ready to take justice into his own hands. But one of his neighbors intercepts him and suggests that he take the safer route of calling the police. Although he is still furious and filled with the desire for revenge, Ivan pauses and considers his options. In the end, he decides to give the law and justice a chance. Shortly after, a team of police officers storm the boys' apartment and place the three young men under arrest. The lead inspector, who is visibly outraged by their actions, is as angry as Katia's grandfather, and he appears determined to secure justice for the young girl, as he immediately began the interrogation. At first, the boys deny any wrongdoing, but the inspector soon separates them, and while using psychological pressure, he warns each of them of the reality of the harsh treatment awaiting them in prison if they don't confess. In the end, the boys soon get overwhelmed as Boris breaks down and admits they did bring Katia into the apartment and had forced themselves on her. But even after their confessions, the situation takes a different turn when Vadim's father, Colonel Nikolai, who is a high-ranking police official, arrives on scene. He immediately chose to leverage his authority, as he requested that the boys be released into his custody so he can handle the matter privately. But the inspector refuses, as he reveals that the suspects have already confessed, and a blood-stained sheet recovered from the apartment corroborates the victim's account. However, when Nikolai insists again, the inspector demands that they get an official order in writing. Just then, a junior officer shares additional intelligence about the situation that, according to multiple neighborhood residents, the group of boys have routinely held parties every Wednesday, during which they harass women. Their behavior is well known amongst everyone in the neighborhood. Now totally overwhelmed by the evidence and witness testimony, Nikolai retreats for the moment, even though it is very clear that he is not giving up just yet. The next morning, when Ivan wakes, he sees Katia missing from her room. When he eventually finds her, Katia tells him that she cannot face her reflection in the mirror, and this breaks Ivan's heart. So, he offered to call a trusted female doctor from their building to check on her. But Katia refuses, as she is still very unwilling to let anyone else know what happened. However, Ivan tells her that the entire neighborhood already knows due to the police activity the previous day. This news devastates Katia, as she confesses that she fears her reputation is permanently damaged. Eventually, the doctor checks on her and confirms her physical condition is fragile. She advises that she needs adequate rest and more time to heal. Then, she tells Ivan that Katia would need more emotional support for her to recover fully. Later that day, Ivan receives troubling news that the boys have been released, and that Colonel Nikolai has used his influence to secure their freedom. Although he is furious at the news, Ivan chooses to remain focused on getting justice for his granddaughter. So the next day, he takes Katya to a police officer in the hopes of filing a formal complaint and pushing the case to court. However, their efforts are crushed when she discovers that the officer is also corrupt and that he is working for Nikolai. The officer even mocks Katya's story and accuses her of seducing the boys deliberately, as he implies that she must have orchestrated the encounter just so she can force marriage with one of them. Now feeling totally humiliated and emotionally drained, Katya loses all faith in the justice system as she confesses to Ivan that she no longer has the will to fight and that she wishes to just bury the memory. But Ivan refuses to let the incident be silenced, as he remains determined to expose the truth and bring those responsible to justice, no matter the cost. By the following morning, Ivan spots the boys loitering in a parked car, and he calmly approaches them to tell them that he has memorized their faces before turning away. The group, who were still arrogant and self-assured, brushes it off, unaware that their actions have set something irreversible in motion. In his final attempt to correct the institutional corruption, Ivan visits an old friend who is a judge hoping for support. But instead of helping him, the judge blames Katya for the assault and accuses her of immoral behavior. This leaves Ivan once again disgusted as he walks out of the office. That is when he finally realizes that he can no longer rely on the system and that he's on his own. But he's still determined to seek justice. So, he decides to sell part of his property to fund his next move. Later that day, when Ivan returns home, Katya tells him that Colonel Nikolai had come by with a cash envelope in an attempt to silence her. Enraged and disgusted by his audacity, Ivan storms to Nikolai's house and throws the money back in his face. His response is clear as he tells him that no price can buy his silence or forgiveness. That evening, Katya tells her grandfather that her aunt has left the keys to her apartment for her so she can help her care for her birds while she's away. So, Ivan chose to help her out that day, and when he gets to the apartment, he discovers that it directly faces the home of the boys. That is when he realizes that this can serve as a tactical advantage for him, and he begins formulating a plan. The next day, Ivan goes to the weapon market and searches for guns to buy. However, the official dealers refuse to sell him anything beyond basic handguns. But one man who had overheard their conversation offered something more serious. He takes Ivan to a secluded location where he allows him to inspect various firearms. Among them, an SVD sniper rifle catches his eye. He immediately tested his shooting and made every shot with great precision. He eventually buys the weapon and its attached silencer, as his salesman starts to suspect that its intended use won't be legal. When he returns home, Ivan is greeted by Katya's estranged mother, who has just returned from Turkey with her new boyfriend. She showers her with gifts and encourages Katya to move on, as she tries to present herself as a supportive parent. But she soon drops her facade that evening, when she privately asks Ivan for money. That is when he realized her true motive for returning, and when he confronts her, she is forced to admit that she had actually only returned to exploit the situation, and even threatens to seek money from Nikolai instead. Furious by this, Ivan throws everything she had bought for them outside and forbids her from ever visiting again. The next day, Ivan visits the local park where he meets his old friends playing chess. But as he watches the game, he catches a glimpse of the three boys returning to their apartment across the street. So, he quietly slips away and heads to Katya's aunt's unit. From its windows, we see that he has a clear and unobstructed view directly into the boys' living room. With the high-powered sniper rifle in hand and his target in plain sight, Ivan prepares to carry out the justice that the legal system failed to deliver, and from his vantage point, Ivan locks onto his first target. Then with great precision, he pulls the trigger as the bullet strikes Boris directly in the groin, leaving him permanently mutilated. Ivan immediately stashes the weapon and calmly rejoins his friends, as he blends into the background as though nothing had happened. In the meantime, Boris is rushed to the hospital by his terrified friends. Later on, we see Nikolai questioning Vadim and Igor, as he suspects that they might have been reckless with their firearms. But the two insist they were merely talking when the incident occurred. This immediately starts to make Nikolai suspicious of the incident, and that someone may be out for blood. Meanwhile, one of the police inspectors starts to grow suspicious of Ivan, as he suspects that he has motives for such actions. So, he tells Ivan that is being considered a prime suspect. He also explains that Nikolai won't rest until Ivan is dealt with, one way or another. But even at this, Ivan returns to Katya's aunt's apartment, and this time, his target is Igor. He finds him relaxing in his parked car, totally unaware of the danger looming. Moments later, Ivan fires at the vehicle's gas tank, causing a fiery explosion. Although Igor manages to escape, his lower body is scorched beyond recovery, and he is told that he will never be able to walk again. By this time, Nikolai has become totally worried as he starts to figure out the pattern. So, he quickly warns Vadim to stay vigilant, and he also reinforces the house, fearing that his son will be the next target. In the meantime, we see that Vadim has become paranoia and gradually losing his mind about the situation. Elsewhere, the inspector visits Katya's home to speak with Ivan. Although he is not there, Katya mentions that he frequently visits her aunt's apartment to care for the birds. So, the inspector collects the keys to the apartment and immediately starts connecting the dots in connection to the recent events. Around that time, Nikolai arrives at Ivan's with a search warrant and a team of officers. They comb through Ivan's home, expecting to uncover the weapon, but they find nothing. Just then, Katia's aunt arrives and requests for her keys. So, the police immediately decide to search her apartment as well. Seeing this, Ivan grows tense as he knows that his rifle is hidden there. But surprisingly, the search yields no results as well. Now totally with no evidence to nail Ivan, Nikolai chooses to confront him directly as he pleads with him to spare Vadim. But Ivan cynically responds that something has already happened to him. Alarmed by this, Nikolai rushes home. But when he arrives and knocks on the door, Vadim panics, and in that state, he mistakes his father's voice for the assassins and opens fire through the door, and he fatally shoots his own father. When he eventually discovers what he has done, Vadim is shattered by more guilt, and this time, he suffers a complete mental breakdown. In the end, a psychiatrist had to see him, and he concluded that his chances of recovery are very slim. Later on, the inspector invites Ivan to his home as he reveals that he had confiscated the sniper rifle before the other officers could find it in Katia's aunt's house. Then he tells Ivan that since he was aware of the boy's crimes, he has decided to let Ivan go with a warning, as he believes that he has finally gotten justice for his granddaughter. In the final scene of the movie, Ivan returns home where he hears Katia playing her guitar for the first time in a long while. He listens to the music through the door as she plays a soft melody. And although the scars of their experiences may remain in them, the sound of her voice starts to signal a new beginning of healing and a quiet end to a storm of vengeance. And that's the story of the movie, Voroshilovskiy Strelok. If you enjoyed the recap, consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.